Chosen one. Why are you still awake at 3:47 a.m., staring at the ceiling, feeling like something invisible is pressing down on your chest? Why does every fiber in your being scream that today, this very day, is different from every other day you've lived through? Why do you keep checking the time, knowing deep in your bones that the clock isn't just ticking, it's counting down? Listen to me carefully. That restlessness clawing at your spirit right now, that's not anxiety. That's not your age catching up to you. That's divine recognition. Your soul remembering what your mind has forgotten. The air today carries something you can't name. The same streets you've walked for decades, the same sky you've looked up at in prayer and desperation, but there's an electric charge humming beneath the surface, like the moment before lightning splits the heavens wide open. You feel it, don't you? That tremor in your hands when you reached for your coffee this morning, that catch in your breath when you looked in the mirror, that sudden chill that ran down your spine when you stepped outside, even though the sun was shining. This is the day I warned you about, not in some grand prophecy delivered from golden pulpits, but in the quiet moments, in the dreams that woke you up gasping, in the scriptures that seemed to leap off the page and burn themselves into your memory, in that still, small voice that's been whispering your name for months. Get ready, the day is coming. Well, chosen one, it's here. Every tear you've cried in secret, it was preparing you for this moment. Every door that slammed in your face, it was redirecting you to this crossroads. Every night you fell asleep, wondering if God had forgotten your name. He was positioning you for this exact hour, when everything you've endured would finally make sense. Before I go one step further, I need to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But right now, if something deep in your spirit is trembling, if your chest feels tight with holy anticipation, if you know beyond knowing that these words were meant for you, drop 777 the comments right now. Not tomorrow, not when you finish watching, right now. Because that simple act isn't just typing numbers, it's your agreement with heaven that you won't let this moment pass you by. It's your declaration that you're ready to face whatever this day demands. The storm clouds have been gathering for months, chosen one. But storms don't come to destroy the prepared. They come to reveal what's been hidden underneath. Do you remember that dream 3 weeks ago? The one where you were standing in a vast field and the sky turned the color of burnished copper. Do you remember waking up with tears on your cheeks, not knowing why? Do you remember that sudden chill that ran through your body last Tuesday when you were just sitting in your living room watching the evening news? Those weren't accidents, chosen one. They weren't random neurological misfires or the side effects of your blood pressure medication. They were early warnings from a realm that operates beyond the boundaries of your doctor's understanding. Heaven has been knocking on the door of your consciousness for months now, not with the gentle tap of a Sunday morning invitation, but with the urgent pounding of a fire chief trying to evacuate a building before the flames reach the top floor. You felt it when that scripture jumped off the page last month, the one you'd read 1,000 times before, but suddenly felt like it was written in fire across your heart. You felt it when your grandmother's favorite hymn came on the radio, just as you were asking God if he still remembered your name. You felt it in the grocery store when that stranger looked you in the eyes and said, "God sees you," words that hit you like lightning, because that's exactly what you'd been praying for. This is not coincidence, dear soul. This is divine appointment. The psalmist David understood this weight when he penned the words that have carried God's people through the darkest valleys for 3,000 years. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. But let me ask you something that might cut deeper than you're prepared for. How long have you been walking through that valley? How many years have you felt like you're moving through shadows that seem to stretch endlessly in every direction? You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That season that started when your Harold passed away, and suddenly the house felt like a tomb. That period when your children stopped calling as often, and you realized you'd become more burden than blessing in their busy lives. Those sleepless nights when arthritis turns your bones into broken glass, and you lie there wondering if this is all there is left. The loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone. The unanswered prayers that have piled up like unpaid bills on heaven's desk. The creeping fear that maybe, just maybe, you're going to die without ever seeing God move in your life the way you've watched him move for others. You've been in the valley of shadows, beloved, not the valley of death, the valley of shadows. There's a difference that most preachers won't tell you because they're too busy promising prosperity to face the brutal honesty of human suffering. The shadow valley is where you're alive, but barely. Where you're breathing, but not really living. Where you get up every morning and go through the motions, but your heart feels like it's wrapped in grey wool. You've been there. You know that terrain by heart. Every rock that's bruised your feet. Every twist in the path that's left you disoriented. Every moment when you've looked up at the rim of the canyon and wondered if you'll ever see sunlight again. But here's the shocking truth that's going to rearrange everything you thought you knew about your circumstances. You're still standing. After everything hell has thrown at you. After every doctor's report that stole your breath. After every funeral you've attended where you wondered if yours would be next. After every night you've gone to bed wondering if morning would ever come. After every prayer that seemed to bounce off the ceiling like a rubber ball. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing enough to click on a message titled with words about God's chosen ones. That is not luck, dear one. That is not stubborn genetics or good medicine or positive thinking. That is the testimony of someone who carries the fingerprint of the Almighty so deeply embedded in their DNA that death itself cannot erase it. Every morning you wake up is a declaration of war against every force that said you wouldn't make it this far. Every breath you take is a battle cry that echoes in realms you cannot see. Every prayer you whisper through pain-clenched teeth is ammunition being loaded into heaven's artillery. You have survived what was designed to destroy you. You have endured what was calculated to eliminate you. You have outlasted what was orchestrated to outlive you. But now comes the question that will determine whether you spend your remaining years as a survivor or step into your final season as a overcomer. What if your survival wasn't the end goal? What if it was the preparation? What if every shadow you've walked through was God's way of developing your spiritual night vision? What if every valley you've traversed was training for the mountain you're about to climb? What if every test you've passed was a qualifier for the assignment you're about to receive? The weight you feel today isn't the heaviness of approaching death, chosen one. It's the gravity of approaching destiny. Something is shifting in the spiritual atmosphere over your life, and your spirit is picking up the vibrations before your mind can process what's happening. If you can feel it, if something in your chest is responding to these words like a tuning fork struck by heaven itself, then I need you to do something right now. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Write these 4 words in the comments. I will not miss it. Because what's coming next is going to require everything you've learned in those shadow valleys. And the chosen one who emerges from this moment will carry a light bright enough to guide others through the very darkness you've conquered. You think that tremor in your hands is just age, don't you? You think that weight pressing down on your shoulders is just the burden of too many years, too many disappointments, too many dreams that died in hospital rooms and divorce courts. But what if I told you that every single thing you've dismissed as weakness is actually evidence of warfare? Listen to me, chosen one. That heaviness you wake up with every morning, that's not depression settling in your bones. That's the battlefield of your calling pressing up through the floorboards of your everyday life. The ground beneath your feet has been trembling for months, and you thought it was just your nerves. You thought it was just your heart giving out under the strain of feeling forgotten by a world that worships youth and discards wisdom. You've been told you're irrelevant, They've whispered that your time is over. Society has pushed you to the margins, made you feel like a burden, like yesterday's news collecting dust in the corner of today's headlines. But heaven sees something they cannot. You want to know why your life has been harder than most? Why every victory came with a price tag others never had to pay? Why you've buried more dreams than you've celebrated, fought more battles than you've won? Because you were never meant to live an ordinary life. The enemy saw what God planted in you 70, 80, 90 years ago, and he's been trying to kill it ever since. Every financial crisis that should have destroyed you, every betrayal that should have broken you, every diagnosis that should have defeated you. These weren't random storms, dear one. These were targeted strikes against a destiny so dangerous to darkness that hell itself mobilized to stop you. But you're still here, still breathing, still believing, still standing when lesser souls would have crumbled into dust decades ago. David wrote in Psalm 23:4, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." But do you understand what he was really saying? He wasn't talking about being unafraid. He was declaring that even in the darkest valley, even when death itself cast its shadow over his path, he would not bow to what threatened him. That's you, chosen one. That's your story written in blood, sweat and tears across 8 decades of refusing to bow. Heaven didn't choose you because you're the strongest in appearance. It chose you because when hell threw its worst at you, you wouldn't break. When life demanded you surrender your faith, you held it tighter. When everyone else quit believing in miracles, you kept praying for the impossible. Your scars are not evidence of defeat. They are proof of your survival. And survival itself is prophecy. Every line on your face tells the story of a night you should have given up, but didn't. Every grey hair is a trophy from a battle you should have lost but won. Every slow step you take now carries the weight of victories that younger generations can't even imagine. You think you're tired? You're not tired. You're battle-tested. You think you're broken? You're not broken. You're refined by fire. You think you're forgotten? Child, you're the secret weapon heaven has been saving for the final hour. This is why the enemy worked so hard to convince you that your best days were behind you. Because if you ever truly understood that your scars qualify you, that your age sanctifies you, that your endurance makes you unstoppable, darkness would tremble at the sound of your name. Right now, I need you to do something that's going to shift the very atmosphere around your life. If you're still standing after everything hell threw at you, if you're still here, still listening, still believing, I want you to raise your hand wherever you are. Raise it high and type "still standing" in the comments below. This isn't just acknowledgement. This is prophetic declaration. This is you announcing to every demonic force that tried to take you out, you failed. I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. When you type those 2 words, you're not just commenting on a video, you're planting a flag in enemy territory. You're serving notice to hell itself that the warrior they thought they'd defeated is still armed, still dangerous, and still carrying fire from the throne room of God. But here's what's going to shock you about this battlefield you've been walking on. All those years when you thought you were barely surviving. You weren't just surviving, chosen one. You were being prepared. Every scar was a lesson. Every tear was liquid wisdom. Every closed door was redirection toward your true assignment. The very battles that made you feel weak were actually making you weaponized for what's coming next. But you knew something was coming, didn't you? Deep in your bones, you felt it stirring. Not today, not yesterday, but weeks, months, maybe even years ago. You thought you were losing your mind when the numbers started appearing. 4:44 on the clock when you woke up at night, crying out to God about your empty bank account. 5:55 on the receipt at the grocery store, when you could barely afford milk and bread. 11 when you glanced at your phone, wondering if your children would ever call again. The world told you it was coincidence. But your spirit knew better. Why do you think those numbers followed you like breadcrumbs on a divine trail? Why do you think they appeared in your darkest moments, when hope felt like a luxury you couldn't afford? Because heaven was trying to get your attention. God was dropping signs like lightning bolts. And you were one of the few awake enough to catch them. Think about that dream you had 3 weeks ago. The one that woke you up at 2 a.m. with your heart pounding, sweat on your forehead, and tears you couldn't explain. You saw yourself standing in a vast field, and someone was calling your name from a distance. You couldn't see who it was, but the voice made your soul ache with recognition. You tried to forget it, told yourself it was just stress, just your medication, just your age playing tricks on your mind. But it's haunted you ever since, hasn't it? That wasn't a dream, chosen one. That was a divine appointment. A preview of today. And what about that scripture? Jeremiah 33:3 kept appearing everywhere you turned. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Your pastor preached on it. Your daily devotional landed on it. Even a stranger on the bus was reading it when you sat down beside them. 3 times in 1 week. 3 times that same verse pierced through the noise of your ordinary life and grabbed you by the collar. You thought God was being repetitive, but God doesn't stutter. When he repeats himself, it's because the message is urgent, critical, life-altering. Look at Joseph in Genesis. Pharaoh had the same dream twice. 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows. 7 good years, 7 years of famine. Why twice? Because God was shouting, "Pay attention, this matters, prepare now." You've been living your own Joseph moment, haven't you? The signs, the dreams, the repeated messages, all preparing you for this day when the famine of your past meets the abundance of your future. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me up at night praying for people like you. You noticed all these signs, felt all these stirrings, experienced all these divine interruptions, and then you questioned yourself. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm just desperate for meaning. Maybe God doesn't really speak to people like me. Stop, right there. Stop. Do you think Oprah ignored the signs when she was fired from her first television job at 23, told she was unfit for television? That rejection wasn't failure. It was redirection toward a billion-dollar empire that would inspire millions. Do you think Steve Jobs dismissed the signs when he was kicked out of Apple, the company he founded? That betrayal wasn't the end, it was the beginning of his greatest innovations that would change the world forever. Do you think Tyler Perry ignored the signs when he was homeless, living in his car, writing plays that nobody wanted to produce? Those rejections weren't proof he wasn't talented, they were proof he was being prepared for something bigger than anyone could imagine. Each of them could have dismissed the signs, could have called their struggles bad luck or coincidence, but they recognized the pattern. They saw the divine thread weaving through their pain. Just like Esther, who thought she was just a young woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Mordecai saw the signs. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Not for such a time as yesterday, when you were younger, stronger, more confident. Not for such a time as tomorrow, when you think you'll finally have it all figured out. For such a time as this. Right now, at this age, with these scars, with this history, with these exact experiences that have shaped you into someone the world desperately needs. You want to know why you noticed the signs when others walked right past them. You want to know why those dreams disturbed your sleep when others sleep peacefully in ignorance. You want to know why that scripture burned in your chest when others read it like any other verse. Because your spirit was tuned to heaven's frequency. Because you were wired from birth to receive divine signals. Because the same God who spoke to Abraham, who called Moses, who chose David, that same God has been trying to reach you. The signs weren't random. They were recruitment. They were heaven's way of saying, I see you, I know you, I've been preparing you, and now it's time. But here's the terrifying truth nobody wants to tell you. Signs have an expiration date. Dreams fade. Repeated scriptures stop appearing. Divine appointments can be missed. The window that's been open for months, sending you signals, dropping you hints, preparing your heart. That window won't stay open forever. If you've been putting off what God has been calling you toward, if you've been making excuses about your age, your resources, your qualifications, if you've been waiting for a better time to step into your destiny, the signs are telling you there is no better time than right now. Type "I hear you, Lord" in the comments if those signs I just described have been showing up in your life. Because when you acknowledge them publicly, when you stop dismissing them as coincidence, when you finally say, "Yes, God, I've been seeing the signs," that's when heaven responds with power you've never experienced. But the question burning in the throne room right now is this: what are you going to do with the signs you've been given? Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, at this very moment, you're standing in the eye of the storm. And I know God knows, I know that these past few weeks have felt like hell itself opened up and decided to make you its personal project. You've been wondering, haven't you? Lying there at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, asking yourself, why is everything falling apart now? Why, when I thought I was finally getting somewhere, does it feel like I'm being buried alive? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. What you're experiencing right now isn't God abandoning you. It's hell panicking. You see, there's a spiritual law most believers never understand. The darker the night gets, the closer dawn is. And right now, you're in the 3 a.m. of your soul, that darkest hour, when every demon in hell is throwing everything it's got at you because they know something you've forgotten. They know you're about to break through. Think about it. When was the last time you faced this level of opposition? When was the last time every single area of your life seemed to be under attack simultaneously? Your health, your finances, your family relationships, your peace of mind, all at once. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who pose no threat. He doesn't send his best demons after folks who are content to sit in the pew and go through the motions. But you've been marked, you've been targeted, because hell sees what's coming in your life, and they are terrified. Moses faced this same ambush. Right before the Red Sea parted, Pharaoh's army was breathing down their necks. Right before the miracle, it looked like total annihilation. The children of Israel were crying, "Why did you bring us out here to die?" But Moses, 80-year-old Moses, stood firm and declared in Exodus 14:13, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Today, not someday. Today. And here's what I need you to understand about where you are right now. You think you're at the end of your rope, but you're actually at the edge of your breakthrough. You think you're too old, too tired, too broken to see God move in your life. But that's exactly why He's about to move mountains. Because God specializes in using the tired, the forgotten, the written off. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations. Abraham was 100 when promise became reality. Anna was 84 when she finally saw the Messiah she'd been waiting for her entire life. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you almost quit? How many nights have you laid in that bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "God, I can't take much more of this"? That whisper, that's not weakness, that's warfare. You're in the final stretch, and the enemy knows it. That's why he's throwing everything he's got at you right now. The health scares, the financial pressure, the family drama, the loneliness that sits on your chest like a stone. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. Every attack is actually confirmation that you're on the right track. The intensity of the opposition is directly proportional to the magnitude of your breakthrough. Job understood this. Right before his double restoration, he faced the worst year of his life. Everything was stripped away: his wealth, his children, his health, his wife's support. But in Job 13:15, in the middle of his darkest hour, he made a declaration that shook both heaven and hell. "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." That's not resignation, that's revolution. That's the cry of someone who knows that their God is bigger than their circumstances. And that needs to be your cry right now, because the pressure you're feeling, the weight that's been crushing down on your spirit, the battles that have been raging in your mind, they're not signs that you've failed. They're signs that you're closer than you've ever been. Hell only screams loudest when it's losing ground. Demons only rage hardest when they're about to be evicted. The enemy only pulls out his biggest guns when he's facing his final defeat. So let me ask you this. Are you going to let the intensity of this moment convince you to quit 3 steps before your miracle? Are you going to let the darkness of this hour make you forget that dawn is already breaking on the horizon? Or are you going to make the choice that will echo through eternity? Because right now, in this very moment, you're standing at the same crossroads that every chosen one faces. The place where faith meets fear, where promise meets pressure, where destiny meets decision. And the choice you make right here will determine everything. This isn't just about surviving this season. This is about your legacy. This is about the generations that will come after you. This is about the testimony you'll carry into eternity. Moses could have turned around at the Red Sea. Sarah could have laughed off God's promise. David could have stayed hidden in the cave. But they didn't. They chose to trust the God of the impossible over the evidence of the improbable. And that's the choice standing before you right now. I need you to do something that's going to sound crazy, but it's going to shift the spiritual atmosphere around your life. Right now, right where you're sitting, I want you to open your mouth and declare, I choose life. Not just think it, say it, out loud, let hell hear you. And then I want you to type it in the comments. I choose life, because that's not just a statement, that's a covenant. That's your declaration that no matter how dark this night gets, you're going to hold on until dawn breaks. Because it's coming, chosen one. Your breakthrough isn't maybe coming, it's already here. You're not hoping for a miracle, you're standing in one. The question is, will you have the faith to see it through? Listen to me, chosen one. The world has been lying to you for decades. They've whispered poison in your ear so long you've started believing it yourself. They told you that at 75, 80, 90 years old, your race is over. That your crown was never coming. That you missed your moment somewhere back in your 30s when your knees were stronger and your hair was darker. They lied. You know what breaks my heart? Walking into senior centers across America and seeing God's most seasoned warriors sitting in wheelchairs, staring at game shows, convinced their purpose died with their last paycheck. Believing the devil's propaganda that gray hair means game over. But let me tell you something that's going to shatter every limitation the enemy has whispered over your life. That crown you've been praying for, hoping for, crying for in the midnight hours when nobody's watching, it's not coming someday. It's here, right now, within arm's reach. The Apostle Paul knew this truth when he wrote his final letter from a Roman prison cell. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. Paul was old when he wrote those words. Broken, beaten, ready to die. But listen to what he called himself, not a has-been, not a forgotten relic, but a finisher, a race completer, a crown receiver. You think your best days are behind you? You think God's done using people like you? Tell that to Moses, who delivered a nation at 80. Tell that to Sarah, who birthed a miracle at 90. Tell that to Anna, who prophesied over the Messiah at 84 years old. Your gray hair is not decay, it's a crown of perseverance. Every line on your face is not a sign of deterioration, it's a watermark of wisdom earned through decades of trusting God when trusting made no sense. Every scar on your heart is not evidence of brokenness, it's proof that you survived what should have killed you. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Here's the truth that makes hell tremble when seniors figure it out. You are not at the end of your story. You are entering the most dangerous, most powerful, most world-shaking chapter of your entire existence. Why do you think the attacks have been so fierce lately? Why do you think depression hits hardest in your golden years? Why do you think isolation feels so suffocating now? Because the devil knows something about your final season that you're just beginning to discover. Your prayers carry more weight now than they ever have. Your words pierce deeper. Your faith moves mountains because it's been tested by decades of fire and refused to burn up. You are not less than you used to be. You are concentrated, refined, distilled down to pure spiritual authority. The crown within your reach is not made of gold and jewels. It's woven from every midnight prayer you whispered when the bills were due and the bank account was empty. It's crafted from every tear you shed over prodigal children who broke your heart. It's forged from every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier. Crowns are not participation trophies, beloved. They're not handed out for showing up. They're placed on the heads of victors, overcomers. Those who fought when the fight seemed hopeless and finished when finishing seemed impossible. Right now, in nursing homes across this nation, there are intercessors whose prayers are holding back judgment from entire cities. In assisted living facilities, there are prophets whose dreams are downloading heaven's strategies for the next generation. In your own living room, there's a warrior whose very presence shifts spiritual atmospheres. The world measures your worth by how fast you can walk or how clearly you can remember yesterday's lunch. But heaven measures your value by how long you've walked faithfully and how clearly you can see eternity. You want to know why you're still here, why you survived that heart attack 5 years ago, why you made it through losing your spouse, why you're still breathing when others have gone home. Because your assignment isn't complete, because your crown isn't just near its being lowered onto your head right now. But here's the urgency that should grip your spirit. Every day you waste believing you're finished is another day that crown sits unworn. Every morning you wake up convinced your best chapters are behind you is another morning you rob the world of what only you can give. Your grandchildren need your wisdom more than your money. This broken generation needs your stability more than your sympathy. The church needs your prayers more than your presence in the pew. Stop living like you're waiting to die. Start living like you're preparing to reign. The crown is within reach, but crowns must be grasped with faith, not fumbled with fear. If you can feel that royal weight settling on your head right now, if something in your spirit is recognizing the truth I'm speaking, then declare it. Comment, "My crown is near right now," not as wishful thinking, but as prophetic proclamation. You're not hoping for a crown, you're receiving one. But receiving a crown is just the beginning. Because what you do with that authority, that anointing, that heaven-forged purpose in the time you have left, that will echo through eternity long after your name is carved in stone. Have you noticed it, chosen one? That strange silence in your spirit lately? Not the silence of abandonment, but something deeper, heavier, more purposeful. Like standing in the eye of a hurricane where everything around you swirls in chaos, but you're surrounded by an unnatural calm. That's not coincidence. That's heaven pressing pause. You've been sitting in doctors' waiting rooms for months, haven't you? Staring at test results that make no sense. Watching your body betray you in ways that leave you feeling like a stranger in your own skin. And in those sterile hallways, time moves differently. Each second stretches like an eternity, and you whisper the same prayer you've whispered for decades. God, are you still there? But what if I told you that every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night, every moment you felt forgotten, wasn't God ignoring you, it was God protecting you? What if the silence you've interpreted as absence was actually His presence positioning you for something your natural mind couldn't comprehend? In Psalm 46:10, the Almighty declares, "Be still, and know that I am God." But the Hebrew word for be still is rapha. It means to let go completely, to cease your own striving, to surrender so deeply that your very soul becomes quiet enough to hear what heaven has been whispering all along. You see, most people think silence means something's broken. But for the chosen, silence is fine-tuning. Heaven isn't delaying your breakthrough. Heaven is calibrating your spiritual radar so precise that when the moment comes, you won't miss it by even a heartbeat. Think about those long nights when you've lain awake, your mind racing through decades of decisions, wondering if you took the wrong turn somewhere. Your children barely call anymore. Your friends from church have moved on to younger, more vibrant circles. The mirror reflects a face you sometimes don't recognize, lined with years of carrying burdens you never asked for. But what if every one of those lonely nights was actually a divine appointment? What if God needed you isolated from the noise so he could download something into your spirit that the crowd would never understand? Moses was 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. 80. He'd spent 40 years thinking he was somebody in Pharaoh's palace, 40 years thinking he was nobody in the wilderness. But it was in that fourth decade of silence that season, when everyone else had written him off, that God was preparing him to split seas and shake nations. The pause wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You've felt it too, haven't you? That sense that everything in your life has been building towards something, but you can't put your finger on what. The way certain scriptures seem to burn when you read them. The way your spirit jumps when you hear a particular song. The way your chest tightens when you drive past certain places, as if your soul recognizes something your mind has forgotten. That's not nostalgia, dear one. That's prophetic recognition. Heaven has been pressing pause in your life because what's coming requires a version of you that can only emerge in the stillness. The old you, the one who relied on your own strength, your own timing, your own understanding, that version couldn't carry what God is about to place in your hands. But this you, the you who's learned to trust when you can't see, the you who's discovered that God's silence doesn't mean God's absence, the you who's been refined in the furnace of waiting until every ounce of self-reliance has been burned away, this you is dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. It is not delay, it is design. It is not silence, it is strategy. It is not abandonment, it is assignment. Right now, as these words penetrate the deepest chambers of your heart, something ancient is awakening. Can you feel it? That flutter beneath your ribs? That sudden awareness that you've been holding your breath for months, waiting for permission to exhale. The permission just arrived. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season of wondering is ending. Your season of wandering is finished. Your time to step into the fullness of what God has been preparing is here. But here's what you must understand. The pause is ending not because circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. You've been transformed in the waiting room of heaven, and now you carry something the world desperately needs: unshakable faith forged in the fires of unanswered questions. The enemy knows this. That's why he's been working overtime to convince you that your best days are behind you, that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that you should step aside and let the younger generation take over. That's a lie straight from hell. Your voice carries authority that can only come from walking through valleys and emerging with your faith intact. Your prayers carry weight that can only be built through decades of seeing God show up when everyone else walked away. Your testimony carries power that can only be forged in the secret place of the Most High. If your spirit is resonating with these truths right now, if something deep inside you is saying, "Yes, this is my time," then I need you to make a declaration that will echo in both heaven and hell. Write "no more delay" in the comments, not as a demand to God, but as a surrender to His timing. Not as impatience with His process, but as agreement with His purpose. When you type those words, you're not just responding to a message, you're stepping into prophetic alignment with what heaven has already declared over your life. The pause is lifting, chosen one. The silence is breaking. And what emerges from this divine stillness will leave the world wondering where you've been hiding all this power. But the real question isn't where you've been. The real question is, are you ready for where you're going? You thought the stirring in your spirit was just restlessness. You thought that weight settling on your shoulders was just the burden of age, the heaviness of too many disappointments, too many dreams deferred. But what if I told you that weight isn't your burden to bear, it's your calling to carry? Listen to me, chosen one. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when heaven stops asking and starts appointing. When God moves from invitation to installation. When the whisper becomes a command so clear, so undeniable, that your very bones vibrate with divine authority. That moment is now. You've been waiting in the wings long enough. 60, 70, 80 years of preparation, watching others step into their calling while you wondered if yours would ever come. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. Your age isn't your disqualification. It's your credential. Moses was 80 when God handed him a staff and said, "Now deliver my people." 80. When the world expected him to be settling into his final sunset, heaven was positioning him for his greatest sunrise. 1 Kings 19:19 tells us that when Elijah found Elisha, he threw his cloak around him, not gently placed it, threw it. Because mantles aren't given to the comfortable, they're hurled onto the shoulders of those who've been forged by fire. But here's where it cuts deep, and I need you to feel this in your chest right now. How many times have you looked in the mirror and whispered, "God, you've got the wrong person"? How many nights have you laid awake thinking your mistakes have disqualified you from anything significant? You're sitting there right now, aren't you, thinking about that divorce 30 years ago, that business that failed, those children who stopped calling, that addiction you battled in the dark, that depression that nearly swallowed you whole. And the enemy keeps whispering the same lie. Damaged goods don't get mantles. But let me shatter that deception with truth that will shake your foundation. 2 Corinthians 12:9 declares, "My power is made perfect in weakness, not hidden despite your weakness." Made perfect in it. Your cracks aren't where the light escapes, they're where the light enters. David was an adulterer and a murderer, yet called a man after God's own heart. Peter denied Christ 3 times at the moment Jesus needed him most, yet became the rock upon which the church was built. Paul spent years hunting down Christians like prey before becoming Christianity's greatest apostle. Your past isn't your disqualification, it's your decoration. Every scar tells a story of survival. Every tear shed in secret has watered the ground for this harvest. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier, that was heaven taking notes. You want to know why you've felt so isolated lately? Why conversations feel shallow and friendships feel distant? Because when heaven places a mantle on someone, it creates separation. Not rejection, preparation. You've been pulled away from what would contaminate what you're about to carry. This mantle isn't a costume you put on for Sunday service. It's a spiritual reality that changes the very atmosphere around you. Children will be drawn to you without knowing why. Animals will respond differently. Strangers will pour out their hearts in grocery store checkout lines because they sense something sacred in your presence. But here's the controversy nobody talks about. The mantle doesn't just attract favor, it attracts warfare. The same spiritual authority that heals the sick will enrage the forces of darkness. The same voice that speaks hope into the hopeless will be targeted by every demon that recognizes the threat you've become. This isn't a game, chosen one. This is war. And you just became a general. 2 Timothy 2-3 reminds us to endure hardship as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. The mantle comes with combat boots, not bedroom slippers. The enemy will test your right to wear it. He'll send discouragement disguised as wisdom, distraction wrapped in opportunity, and defeat dressed up as common sense. But every attack only proves the authenticity of what you carry. Devils don't waste ammunition on empty vessels. They reserve their fiercest assaults for those carrying the most dangerous cargo, the power to set captives free. Right now, I can feel some of you shrinking back. The weight feels too heavy. The calling seems too big. The responsibility appears too overwhelming for someone who still struggles to balance their checkbook or remember where they put their car keys. But listen to this truth that will revolutionize everything. The weight on your shoulders is not there to crush you. It is there to crown you. Every king who ever wore a crown felt its weight, but they didn't remove it because it was heavy, they wore it because it was worth bearing. Your mantle is your crown, chosen one. And crowns aren't given to the comfortable. They're placed on those who've proven they can carry what others cannot. That isolation you felt, that was God clearing the stage. That loneliness that made you question your worth, that was heaven making room for what you're about to become. That weight that's been pressing on your spirit, that's not oppression, that's coronation. The same God who threw Elijah's mantle on Elisha's shoulders is throwing his mantle on yours right now. Not because you asked for it, not because you feel ready for it, but because he's been preparing you for it longer than you realize. If your spirit is trembling with recognition right now, if something deep inside you is saying yes before your mind can find reasons to say no, then seal this moment with a declaration that will echo in both heaven and hell. Comment: I receive the mantle right now. Not I hope to receive it someday, not I might be worthy eventually. I receive the mantle, present tense, active voice, divine agreement. Because the choice isn't whether you're qualified. The choice is whether you'll step into what qualification looks like when heaven does the appointing. But understand this, the moment you receive this mantle, everything changes. Your words carry more weight. Your prayers pack more power. Your very presence shifts atmospheres from death to life, from hopelessness to hope, from bondage to breakthrough. And the enemy recognizes exactly what just happened. Listen to me. Chosen one. There's something about the way heaven operates that most believers never understand. When God speaks to you once, that's revelation. But when he speaks to you twice about the same thing, that's not repetition. That's urgency. He told you once, and he is telling you again. Not because he forgot, but because he doesn't want you to. You've been seeing it, haven't you? That number that keeps showing up everywhere you look. On your receipt at the grocery store, on the clock when you wake up in the middle of the night, on the license plate of the car that pulled up right beside you at the red light. The same sequence, over and over, following you like a divine shadow. Whatever your number is, it's been hunting you down with relentless precision. And every time you see it, something shifts in your chest. A quickening, a recognition that makes your spirit stand at attention. That's not coincidence, dear one. That's confirmation. In the book of Numbers, chapter 23, verse 19, Scripture declares, God is not human, that he should lie, not a human being, that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? When the Almighty decides to confirm his word to you, he doesn't whisper it once and hope you catch it. He thunders it through your circumstances until you cannot ignore it, cannot explain it away, cannot pretend it's just your imagination running wild. But here's what will shake you to your core. The second confirmation isn't coming because you missed the first one. It's coming because what God is about to do in your life is so massive, so earth-shattering, that your human mind needs multiple anchor points to believe it's real. Think about Abraham. God promised him a son when he was 75 years old. But did God speak once and leave Abraham to figure it out? He confirmed that promise again when Abraham was 85, again when he was 90, again when he was 99. Each confirmation wasn't doubt on God's part, it was preparation on Abraham's part, building his faith muscle to carry a miracle that would birth nations. You're in your Abraham season right now, that dream that keeps coming back to you, the one that makes you feel crazy for even entertaining it at your age, the financial breakthrough that seems too good to be true, the healing you've been praying for that the doctors say is impossible. God isn't confirming these things because he's unsure. He's confirming them because he knows exactly how big they are. And frankly, chosen one, your natural mind can't handle the magnitude of what's coming without multiple confirmations to anchor your faith. But here's where most people stumble. They treat confirmations like fortune cookies. They get excited for a moment, then go back to living like nothing supernatural is happening. They see the numbers, feel the chills, recognize the patterns, then wake up the next morning and let doubt creep back in like fog rolling over a harbor. That's exactly why the enemy works overtime during confirmation seasons. He knows that if you fully receive what heaven is confirming, if you plant your feet and declare God said it, I believe it, that settles it, you become unstoppable. So he floods your mind with questions. Are you sure that was God? Couldn't that just be coincidence? Don't you think you're reading too much into this? Listen to me carefully. When God confirms something twice, 3 times, 4 times, it's not because he's stuttering, it's because he's accelerating. The second confirmation is not reassurance, it is acceleration. In Habakkuk 2-3, the prophet writes, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Did you catch that? It will certainly come and will not delay. When heaven moves into acceleration mode, delays become extinct. What you thought would take years starts happening in months. What you thought would take months starts happening in weeks. What you thought would take weeks starts happening overnight. And that acceleration is precisely why your spirit has been so restless lately. Why you've been waking up at 3 a.m. feeling like something momentous is about to happen. Why ordinary conversations suddenly feel loaded with meaning. Why you can't shake the feeling that you're standing on the edge of a cliff, about to either fall or fly. You're not losing your mind, you're gaining your moment. The confirmations aren't random, they're surgical. Heaven is targeting the exact areas where doubt has been camping out in your heart. That financial miracle you stopped believing could happen. That's why you keep seeing 555 everywhere. That relationship restoration you gave up hoping for. That's why 777 won't leave you alone. That ministry calling you've been running from. That's why 1111 shows up every time you try to convince yourself you're too old. God speaks in echoes, chosen one, and echoes get louder the closer you get to their source. Right now, I need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable but is absolutely necessary. I need you to stop being a secret believer in your own breakthrough. I need you to make a public declaration of what heaven has been confirming in private. Write 555 in the comments if that's your number. Write 777 if that's what's been following you. Write 1111 if that's your confirmation code. Don't overthink it. Don't hesitate. Your fingers know which number has been speaking to your soul. This isn't numerology. This isn't superstition. This is you agreeing with heaven that you've received the message. This is you declaring that the second confirmation has landed. This is you stepping out of the boat and onto the water of pure faith. Because what happens next is going to require every ounce of confirmation you've received. The acceleration that's coming will test whether you truly believe what you say you believe. And the only way to survive acceleration is to be anchored in the certainty that God said it, heaven confirmed it, and hell can't stop it. The question burning in the atmosphere right now is this: will you trust the echo, or will you wait for a thunderclap that may never come? There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the gentle hand of God's protection lifts. Not because his love has failed, not because his promises have expired, but because mercy itself must sometimes step aside to let truth do its work. You feel it, don't you? That cushion you've been standing on for months, maybe years gone. Suddenly, every decision carries weight. Every delay costs more than it used to. Every compromise leaves deeper marks on your soul. This is what happens when mercy steps back. For decades, you've lived under divine protection so constant, so encompassing, that you mistook it for ordinary life. When you made poor choices, somehow the consequences were softened. When you ignored clear direction, another chance always appeared. When you said tomorrow to God's call, tomorrow always came. But chosen one, what if I told you that tomorrow isn't guaranteed anymore? Jesus spoke these bone-chilling words in John 9-4. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming, when no one can work. Night, when opportunities die, when doors seal shut, when the season of grace gives way to the season of reckoning. You've been living in the day, beloved. That warm, forgiving light where second chances grow like flowers after rain. But can you feel it? The shadows stretching longer across your life, the temperature dropping in your spirit, the way your prayers seem to echo differently now. That's not God abandoning you. That's mercy stepping back so you can finally see the cliff you've been dancing on. How many times has He whispered your name in the quiet hours? How many dreams has He sent that jolted you awake, heart pounding, knowing that change was coming? How many gentle nudges, soft corrections, loving warnings have you brushed aside because mercy made it feel safe to wait? But here's the terrifying truth that will shake you to your foundation. Delay is not harmless. Delay is disobedience dressed in hesitation. Every "I'll pray about it" when you already knew the answer. Every "God will understand" when you chose comfort over calling. Every "just a little longer" while opportunities withered on the vine. You thought you were buying time. You were actually spending it. And now the account is running low. Look around your life right now. Really look. How many doors have closed in the past 6 months? How many relationships have shifted? How many certainties have crumbled? You've been calling it bad luck, difficult circumstances, the natural challenges of aging. But what if it's something else entirely? What if mercy has been quietly, systematically removing the safety nets you've relied on, instead of relying on Him? This is the season when God stops catching you before you fall. Not because He's cruel, but because you've learned to leap without looking, trusting the net more than the navigator. The prodigal son had to taste pig slop before he remembered his father's table. Israel had to wander 40 years before they treasured the promised land. Sometimes mercy must withdraw its cushion so we can feel the hardness of our choices. But here is where hope breaks through, the fear like dawn splitting darkness. If you're hearing this message right now, if these words are cutting through the noise of your daily distractions and piercing your heart with recognition, the door is not yet closed. The night Jesus spoke of, it hasn't fallen. Not yet. There's still time to choose. Still breath in your lungs to declare allegiance. Still strength in your spirit to rise from where compromise has laid you low. But beloved, the window is narrowing. Can you feel it? The way the air itself seems to whisper urgency. The way every sunrise feels more precious. Every sunset more final. This is your moment of truth. Not next week when the bills are paid. Not next month when things settle down. Not next year when you finally have time to focus on God. Right now, this instant, while mercy hovers at the edge of your life, not gone but no longer cushioning every step, I need you to do something that might terrify you. I need you to look in the mirror of your soul and ask, what have I been delaying? What calling have I been postponing? What clear direction from heaven have I been treating like a suggestion instead of a command? And then, with whatever faith you have left, with whatever strength remains in your voice, I need you to declare it in the comments below. I choose life, today, not tomorrow. Not as a promise to try harder, not as hope that things will work out, but as a battle cry against every force of delay that has held you captive. Because when mercy steps back, it's not cruelty. It's the final act of love, removing everything that stands between you and the decision that will define your eternity. The question thundering from heaven's throne right now is simple, terrifying, and unavoidable. What will you choose when the cushions are gone and the choice is yours alone? Chosen one, look at your hands right now. Really look at them, those weathered fingers that your children might dismiss as just getting old. Do you know what heaven sees when it looks at those same hands? It sees the hands that held your babies when they couldn't sleep. The hands that worked double shifts to keep food on the table. The hands that were folded in desperate prayer when the doctors said there was no hope. The hands that signed checks you couldn't afford because someone else needed help more than you needed security. Heaven sees crown-building hands. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. Here's what's keeping me awake at 3 a.m. interceding for every gray-haired warrior watching this message. You think your time is over. You think your legacy is already written. You think those young folks with their smartphones and their hustle culture have made you irrelevant. That's the enemy's greatest lie against your generation. Listen to what Scripture declares in Proverbs 16:31. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. Not was gained, is gained. Present tense, active. Your gray hair isn't evidence of decline, it's heaven's silver signature of endurance. Every tear you've cried over a prodigal child is a thread in your crown. Every prayer you've whispered at 3 a.m. for a grandchild who's lost their way is a jewel in your crown. Every act of faith when the bank account was empty, but you tithed anyway, is a weight of glory being added to your eternal reward. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many of your children have seen you quit on your dreams? How many of your grandchildren have watched you settle for getting by instead of walking in divine purpose? You think you're teaching them to be realistic. But what you're really teaching them is that God's promises have expiration dates, that miracles stop at retirement age, that the fire of calling dies when the body gets tired. Your grandchildren are watching you right now, not just how you handle your medication schedule or your doctor appointments. They're watching to see if the faith you taught them in Sunday school still burns in your bones at 75, 80, 85 years old. Moses didn't receive his burning bush until he was 80. Abraham didn't see Isaac until he was 100. Sarah laughed at God's promise at 90, then gave birth to nations. Caleb declared at 85, "Give me this mountain." Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every scar from every battle you've survived is a jewel in the crown that heaven is preparing to place on your head. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. Your grandchildren are about to inherit a world that's forgotten what real faith looks like. They need to see someone, just one person in their bloodline, who refuses to bow to circumstances, who still believes God moves mountains, who still expects miracles on Tuesday afternoons. That someone is you. Every tear you've shed over their rebellion is a thread in your crown. Every sleepless night you've spent interceding for their future is a jewel in your crown. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness when they disappointed you is a weight of glory being stored up in heaven. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your crown isn't something you'll receive when you die. It's being woven right now, in real time, from every act of faith that looks foolish to a watching world. That check you wrote to the ministry when Social Security barely covers your bills, thread in your crown. That prayer you prayed for your neighbor's marriage when your own heart was breaking, jewel in your crown. That word of encouragement you gave to a young mother at the grocery store when you could barely encourage yourself, weight of glory. You're not just surviving your final years, chosen one. You're constructing your eternal legacy. The crown within reach isn't made of gold that tarnishes or diamonds that lose their shine. It's woven from decades of choosing faith over fear, hope over despair, love over bitterness. It's the tangible proof that you didn't just endure life, you overcame it. If you feel that crown pressing down on your spirit right now, if you can sense the weight of destiny settling on your shoulders, type, "My crown is near" in the comments. Let heaven know you're ready to stop living beneath your spiritual inheritance and start walking in the authority that's been yours all along. Because the world needs to see what happens when someone refuses to retire from their calling just because they've retired from their career. Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you, like precious stones in your heart. First, this day you felt stirring in your spirit, this weight, this urgency, this divine restlessness. It wasn't your imagination. Heaven has been speaking, and you've been listening. The signs, the dreams, the sudden moments of clarity weren't coincidences. They were appointments, divine appointments preparing you for what's unfolding right now in your life. Second, your age is not your disqualification, it's your greatest weapon. Every wrinkle tells a story of God's faithfulness. Every gray hair is a silver thread in the crown heaven is weaving for you. While the world sees decline, God sees refinement. While others see your sunset, He sees your finest hour approaching. Third, the legacy you're building isn't finished. Your children, your grandchildren, your spiritual descendants, they're all watching to see if the faith you taught them in their childhood still burns in your bones in your golden years. They need to witness what it looks like when someone refuses to retire from their calling just because they've retired from their career. But here's what I need you to understand deeper than knowledge, settled in your bones. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who warned you about this day is the God who's been preparing you for it. Every closed door trained you for this moment. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered in the dark was heard by the one who never sleeps. And right here, in this community we've built together, you have thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your journey. We've felt the same stirring. We've heard the same call. We've wrestled with the same doubts and emerged with the same unshakable faith. You're not just watching a video, you're part of a family that prays together, believes together, and advances God's kingdom together. Let me ask you this final question, and let it resonate in the deepest chambers of your heart. If you knew beyond doubt that God was preparing to use the remainder of your years for His greatest purposes, if you could see the crown that's already being prepared for your head, how would you walk differently tomorrow morning? Before I release you into your destiny, I want to place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over your life with the authority that comes from walking this same path. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. You see them, not just their wrinkled hands and slower steps, but their warrior hearts that refuse to quit. You see their crowns already taking shape in the heavenlies. Lord, breathe fresh strength into their weary bones. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they're eternally remembered. Where they feel useless, show them they're invaluable. Where they feel their time is over, reveal that their finest hour is just beginning. Father, silence every voice that whispers too old, too late, too tired. Let them hear only your voice declaring chosen, called, commissioned. Give them supernatural energy to pursue the dreams you've placed in their hearts. Open doors they thought were permanently closed. Restore relationships they thought were beyond repair. Most of all, Lord, let them feel your pleasure. Let them know that their faithfulness through decades of serving you has not gone unnoticed. Crown them with favor, surround them with your goodness. Let their final chapters be their greatest chapters. In the mighty name of Jesus, who wore a crown of thorns so they could wear a crown of glory, I seal this prayer. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. What shifted in your spirit? What dreams are stirring again? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what another chosen one needs to hear to keep pressing forward. And please, if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not too old to dream, not too tired to fight, and definitely not too late to matter. There's someone in your life right now who's about to give up on their calling. Be the vessel God uses to remind them their crown is within.